Welcome back. It's G here. Now, I'm sharing with you a discussion today that I had with another woman about our experience being Black women. That's all we can be. But also being Black women who support the Black community, but our partners happen not to be Black. There's a lot of backlash for Black women, or yeah, I'm just gonna separate Black women. There's definitely a lot of backlash for Black women who date outside from the Black community. I think way more so than Black men get. So we're sharing our experience. It's a relatively in-depth discussion. Like, we cover so many different things. So stay, watch, subscribe. Definitely tell me your thoughts. If you are someone who has been experiencing different things while you're in your relationship, definitely share. I would love to have a discussion with you. But I think it's really interesting, and maybe it's insightful for some people who don't realize what women deal with, way more so than I think men do who are dating outside. And yeah, let me know. Like, this is a great discussion, and I so appreciate her for sharing and being candid with me. Um, we talk about everything from social things to little naughty things. So watch the whole video if you want to know all of the interesting tidbits. Subscribe, and yeah, I can't wait to hear your feedback. I've been wanting to have like this conversation for a while with someone about being pro-Black when your partner is of another ethnicity.
Mm-hmm.
And I've done a few things on my channel where Black men have come at me for not having a Black partner, right? They're like, you can't even talk about what's going on in the community. You don't have a Black partner. Like, somehow having a Black penis inside you makes you able to have conversations. Like, that's the only way. you know, Despite the fact that I am a Black woman, I've grown up in the Black community, I it's not like I've left something behind in my Blackness because my partner happens not to be. So I think that for Black women, it's definitely more, people are more critical of us when our partners are not Black. Have
Mm-hmm.
you been finding that same sort of like experience when addressing things in the community or just life in general?
Oh yeah. When it comes to mainly right now, it's like social media. They are very bold.
Yeah.
So it's like the level of disrespect. If anything, I believe that we as Black women are like the number one to jump on and protect our Black men. And it doesn't matter about who I'm sleeping with. Like, it just does not. And that I have a Black boy, even though he's light skinned, considered biracial, he's going to have Black experiences. He's already had Black experiences, and he's only 7 years old.
Right.
So when it comes to them coming at you, you know for a fact that the only way that they knew you were in an interracial relationship, they went and they searched your page. Why did they go search your page? To either see about pursuing you or to see about disrespecting you. They're going to find out which way that they can come at you. So typically it's on there. In person, people don't do it directly to my face.
Hmm.
So I don't know that. I think that that's a dangerous dynamic as well, because that's like people that are racist. If it's a person that is direct in my face, I actually appreciate that more than that undercover person.
For sure.
So, yeah. So, but when it comes to the dynamic, absolutely, they try to hush my mouth, tell me I can't speak on things, and you just don't get to have that. And I won't let them have that type of authority over me. And I put them in their place respectfully. I call it nice nasty. So yeah.
My mom used to say that all the time about me in general. It's interesting. Now, is this your first multi-ethnic relationship?
Yes, actually. Well, I would say on that level, everyone before him was black, but I did date a guy that was Jamaican black. So the cultural dynamics do come in and play a role too. Um, where sometimes people like to just cup it all in one. It's just not like that. There were very big dynamic differences. You could go to his house and it would be a goat hanging in the tree, and that was going to be dinner for the night. So I didn't understand that being an African American. So yeah, it was before him. It was not even something I considered. Um, so many times growing up, because of the way that I spoke and being raised in the South Florida, they assumed that I would marry. They would always tell me, "You're going to marry a white guy." I'm like, "No, I'm not. Don't say that. I don't." It wasn't something I pursued. He just happened to come to me with all the respect, and I put him through it just like I put anybody else through it. And it didn't matter about his skin. Like it wasn't something I sought out. I was actually a little scared because that was just something that was you weren't taught to seek that. So yeah.
Right. I think as Black women, in general, we often are judged not only by others but by each other really harshly, right? Especially when you are dating someone of another ethnicity, and like people will come for you, even other Black women, right? And some what was interesting in one of the conversations in the group that we're in was
Hmm.
that to be pro-Black means to have Black family, like in respect to, like, children, birth Black children. I'm like, we Black women are the birth, we birth everybody. You know what I
Exactly.
mean? The first woman was Black. White people came from us. You know what I mean? So I don't, like, it was one of those weird things where I'm just like, that for me was that very specific white supremacy mentality on race, right?
Yeah.
And I think for me, I'm like, my children, of course they're Black. You know what I mean? Like that whole thing. And I think what's interesting in this conversation when we talk about Black men dating women from other ethnicities, it doesn't change their Blackness, right? It doesn't affect them at all. Whereas with Black women, somehow we're trying to escape our Blackness, and it's like, how does that work? You know what I mean? Like how is that even a thing?
I
That
don't I don't understand how they come to that conclusion. Um, I mean, I hear so many times it's the trophy that they become, this trophy, and then that white men inherit their issues. We're their issues. We're the most unloved women that's out here, and it's ridiculous. I don't understand why it is that we come of being so attacked. We can't express ourselves without some type of issue arising. So, being that we are the foundation of everything, how do we become such a hated creature? Like,
I mean, it's amazing because, and that's so true. Like, if we should be revered, right, as these these goddesses who basically have started civilization as we know it, right? Like humankind came from a Black woman, and it's amazing how, and again, that's that thing where, and a lot of times, like, I don't say like biracial, I'll call my children multi-ethnic,
yeah,
because the whole concept to me of race identity is rooted in white supremacy. Like, they are the ones who came in and put these things, and that's why, like, colorism and everything exists within our own community, right? And what I find is that Black women who are in relationships with people of other ethnicities are more likely to teach these
hmm,
people about our culture versus trying to completely assimilate into everything that is whiteness. And
yeah,
I don't know, like, if you've seen this on social media lately, where there's like these Black men and I saw it on Twitter, and I'll try and like find it to maybe put it in here. But where they were like, oh, they like when white women call them the N word, or you know, like there's like this picture of this couple, and the woman is white, and it looks like the boy might be multi-ethnic, but he's obviously a black boy, and they're like doing, I don't know if it's like an engagement shot, but it's like in a cotton field, and she's like got her hands around his neck, and he's holding like a piece of cotton in his hand, and I was
Oh,
like,
Lord.
now, and you know, everybody's like, his papa is probably black and his mama is white, and I'm like, so somehow a black man let that be, you know, be okay for his son to do.
Yeah.
A black mama ain't gonna have that. You know
No.
what I mean? Like at all. Not like
They
even a
remove
little.
them from the whole family dynamic from what I've seen. And we see this within even black relationships. The father typically removes themselves from the dynamic of the home. So it's not going to change just because you got a white girl now. And
Right.
she is not going to do the stuff that's necessary to create this human being that's so self-aware. I mean, the hatred within yourself to even degrade yourself like that. Like, oh my gosh.
I know.
No.
I know.
That,
It's girl, I am like amazed sometimes by the the commentary, and like, and it's like what you were saying earlier, like they don't listen to us. They don't want to hear what we have to say based on the experiences that we know, and are aware of, and what our specific relationships are. And for me, this isn't my first rodeo with a white guy. I don't know, that sounds weird. But you know what I mean? Like, I have not only dated black men or white men. You know, I've there's a broad spectrum of humans in between those groups, right? And I think like black women, you know, even for ourselves, we have become so, like you said, we're the most unloved, we're the most, you know, put upon in so many ways, that we attach that to ourselves, even in our ability to allow ourselves to be loved, to be open to the possibility that, you know what, I may not have found what I need in this person, but there's people from all over the world that might be into me. You know what I mean? And it's true. It's so
yeah,
true. And I
yes.
think that we limit ourselves
Hmm.
because of these expectations, because we hear this kind of dynamic, like, oh, we can no longer be a part of the community if our partner isn't black. Like, really? You know, like,
Yeah, that's crazy. I know that even though this is my first time, I had been pursued several times. I just never considered it. And I even tell him now. So like when we met, I was trying to figure out why did I give him my number? Like I didn't
right,
understand
right.
it. It took off from there, and he always called back. He always called me. Like it was a different pursuit,
You
and
got
I
the
didn't.
consistency that you needed to feel comfortable with somebody, to have that basis for a relationship. I mean, like, that's what anybody would, you know what I mean? Like,
Exactly. But I never thought of it in a way of it's because he's white. I
right.
just thought in a way of this is how a man is supposed to treat you.
Exactly,
And
and it is.
right. So yeah, I don't know. I never saw it that way. I know when I told my girlfriend, so we talked about getting beat down by our own. They're like, girl, you better than me. I couldn't do that. And I'm like, why do they keep saying this? Like, I didn't understand what they were talking about. And then it finally hit me. Oh, because he's white. Like, it never hit me. It just never
But
hit
isn't
me.
it curious, like, what exactly couldn't you do? Couldn't you be with someone who cared for you? Couldn't you be with someone who was into you? Couldn't you open yourself up for that? Because that's the thing, like people say, right? Like, oh, I couldn't do it. Like, what couldn't you do? Like, be happy? Right,
He,
be loved, be happy, be taken care of. Like, you can't do that for yourself. I think that we have so much to get over. There's so many black women who are limiting themselves. You know what
hmm
I mean? Because they're afraid of what the community standard of blackness is. And this
yeah,
new, and I don't know when this, like, I've had people who are like, oh, your kids aren't black because they're multi ethnic. And I'm like, since when? You know what I mean? Like, I
yeah,
never, I was just like, when did this ownership on blackness within our community, within other black people, become
mhm.
so treacherous and honestly really disturbing? You
It
know,
is.
like, it's really disturbing to me.
Yeah, I know that. That's what I would say would be introduce the hoteps. So, I had that was my first encounter. We were speaking on subjects of origin, and um, this hotep came up, and I didn't know what it was. I'm like, why is this
I just
person coming?
recently found out about this too. I was like, it's a thing.
Yeah, like, why are you coming at me so hard? Like, what is this? Well, you can't. He had the conversation, and then once it came up, somehow it came up about me being married to a white man. It cut completely off. Oh, you can't talk to me no more. I'm like, hold on. So we've been sitting here having conversation. Obviously, I've made some very interjecting like remarks that cause you to come back to talk. So now you just completely throw me out the window because you find out who I'm married to. And then he started coming after my kids. And I was like, oh, no, we don't do that. We don't do that at all. So
No, yeah.
yeah, I don't understand. It's a real big mental, yeah, for lack of better words. Yeah, because uh, I just don't get it. And honestly, I find that when someone goes that hard, typically because they're fighting within themselves of pursuing outside because they want to, thinking about it, but then they feel like it's an inner turmoil that they're fighting with themselves. So they're trying so hard to prove their blackness. I'm like,
Hmm.
I don't. It's not. Trust me, I don't have to prove my blackness. I walk outside, it shows. Period. Like,
Right.
is there? I don't get to choose that. I can't paint this.
No,
So,
it's true. And you know what's interesting is, like, the dynamic within our culture of, colorism, right? A lot of times, black men, brown women like us, right? Like, they will have more issue with. And when you often see a person of another ethnicity dating a black woman, they get themselves a sister. You know what I mean? Like, she is chocolatey brown with natural hair and, like, living in all of the glory of her blackness. They
yeah,
don't try to water that down.
no,
Whereas so much in the black community is constantly trying to water down, even if it's, wearing weaves and wigs and, doing all the things that black women do to be the goddesses that they are. Like, they will look down on that.
mhm,
Whereas, you know, other ethnicities are like, you know what? That's just part of beautifying herself and being presentable for the world or whatever. It doesn't make that person less than what they are.
yeah,
And when you talk about being pro-black, I mean, look at both of us. We're both natural. We both have natural hair. We're both, um, there's nothing watered down about our blackness, right?
yeah,
And we present that full force. We haven't watered ourselves down in an effort to prove to white people anything. You know
okay.
what I mean?
Dang, I'm in their face more. Like I really am, and it's like, yeah, being in there's a protection when you are married to someone that you can easily relate to well. It's beautiful. I absolutely and I condone it as well. Like I do push that too, but I say that this is bad either. So when I say that you can when you're You go to your barracks, you go to the field, you do like there's this protection. You know that you're protected. Outside of that, you have to face dynamics that you probably wouldn't have had to face while you were in protection. So
Right.
being in a racial marriage has actually opened up discussions that I wouldn't have had. It's had to open up mindsets and thoughts that I would have never ventured into. And I think that it's made us more aware, coming out of that comfort zone, because you grow in uncomfort, like you grow in that area. So yeah,
And
I,
I think that no, I think you're right, and I think like I know for me, I've had with my mother-in-law, like I've had the conversations about how I feel, you know, in relation to my children, in relation to, you know, raising them around so many white people, around all of these things. Like I have like these very direct, very honest conversations
yeah,
about what it's like to be in my skin, what I feel like it's going to be like for my children to be in their skin, and how that differs from what her experience or what their father's experience is or will be, and even how it's going to be different for them with me when we're out alone versus when they're out with their father, right? Like it's a whole different, you know, scenario. So I
yeah,
think that, you know, in relation to how we are handling these relationships,
yeah,
it's very direct and very honest, you know,
hmm,
and we are constantly aware.
yeah,
You know what I
yeah.
mean?
Oh
Constantly
my God,
making those points. And
yes.
I don't necessarily know or see, you know, when black men are in these relationships that they are doing the same level of integration, you know.
Yeah, yeah,
They just bring Becky home and they're like, here's Becky.
yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, and that's it.
Wish we could hear a little bit more on this from like their in their house experiences, because yeah, I definitely don't get that. I don't get that they have to, like you said, they don't lose their blackness. They don't have to change anything. They don't have to prove anything. And it's not that we're trying to prove anything, but people come at us that way. They don't come at them that way.
No,
Not what
no.
I've seen.
No,
So
and
yeah.
it's partially because of the whole colorism thing, right? Like they get, they have themselves a trophy in respect to like what they consider beautiful, what they consider, you know, proper as far as like being in a relationship with, and so they can say, well, I understand why, you know, this man would date someone from another ethnicity
Hmm.
because, you know, all of the issues that they are with black women, right? Like, so they're justified. They have to do it. You know what I mean? Like, because they have no other choices. Whereas with us, it's just like, really? They were like, you know what? If you found a dude that was in jail who beat you and he was black, is better than, you know, having a white.
What? Like why? Why? Yeah, no.
Exactly.
Yeah, I know. It's just to say that I married a black man, or just to say I'm in a black relationship and sweep certain things under the rug and ignore them. No, it's not healthy. That is not okay.
No, no,
Yeah,
and but they want that for us. You know what I
yeah,
mean? Like that's not like I gotta want that for me. I don't want
yeah.
that for me. Like the other thing that's been interesting is having any sort of criticism of what black men do to black women turns
Hmm.
into a
Ooh,
shoot. You know what I mean? As
yeah,
though because your partner isn't black, that you no longer experience these things. And it's like, no, because I walk down the street. I think that it's one of those things where, um, like, the conversations don't affect us. Like, what they have to say about black women don't affect us anymore when that's so far from the truth.
mhm,
And I, you know, to have any criticism, you know, regardless, like you said, we do our best to protect. But at the same time, we can call you out when you're being shit. you know? So
Exactly.
I,
Yeah.
I don't understand. It's just like, oh, well, your partner isn't black, so therefore you can no longer talk about anything that black men do.
Hmm. Yeah.
Like,
I'm like, no, not true. Like, I still have black brothers. I still have black uncles. And one day my black son is going to grow up. I don't care what they say or what they want to. It's the way that society's going to treat him. And he is multiracial. He identifies that way, but he also knows that he's black. Like, that's
right.
how he gets both as a 7-year old. He gets it. Like, he
Mm-hmm.
understands I am mixed mom, but at the same time, I'm black. So, like, yeah, it's just, I don't know. I don't, and because we want better, I do see, I can say, I do see that since being young to now, um, there have been, I'm loving this. I'm loving that I'm seeing more examples of black men being affectionate, being
Yes.
open.
Yeah.
Like, I'm loving what amongst the black men right now because oh man, that toxicity. Oh,
No,
you
you're
could.
so right. And that's very true. And I have seen more examples of black men being open and less homophobic and just in general more the ability to say like I'm secure in my masculinity and that security allows me to show affection to other black men, to other people in general, and being open. And I have appreciated seeing more and more of that being reality.
Why do you think that we are seeing that now? Like, why are they becoming more open? Like,
I think
with women, us as black women are having a big part of that, or
I do. I think it's the pushback on so many toxic images. And I think that black women are always leading the fight in getting change. They're having change. You know, like Black Lives Matter is started by a black queer woman, you
mm-hmm,
know, and she's very open about where she is in life. And I think that more and more people are being able to be who they are. And that's starting to you have to accept, right? Like it's coming in your family, it's all around you. Like you just have to accept if you're going to be in this world. Of course there's still those people who are fighting it, like you said, the hot steps. And I think that it's one of those things where now they're starting to know it's okay. And I think more black people, black men are also becoming more open to therapy
mm,
and
yes,
healing those
beautiful,
healing those wounds and understanding that it is not just push it down and hold on to everything, like being able to be open and heal. I think that's part of it, like for me, like yoga was like also a really big part of my own healing therapy, getting over my own shit, right? Like, so I think people becoming more and more open to other forms of expression is
yeah,
making a huge difference in the lives of so many people, especially black men. And I mean, it's lovely to see. It's lovely to see that affection and that ability to be themselves and
hmm
how important it is because erasing those generational curses is where we have to start and get rid of like that male toxicity that that's so prevalent in our community.
yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah. It's just beautiful.
It is. It really is. And I think that, as we have this discussion and we think about it, like the thing that I'm happy to see is more black women celebrating themselves, and not allowing others
Mhm.
to degrade who they are and that pushback. I love that pushback and the calling out of like the misogynoir that is so freaking evident, you know, that people have like accepted and been a part of, and sometimes Black women are a part of it too, you know. But I really do think that all of that pushback, all of those things is what's changing our community. And I mean, we're the leaders of that, you know. We really are. So now this one's jealous.
You're good. Yeah, I do think
God,
that like
Rachel.
on the pushback and how it is, I think it's also creating and carving out a space for us women, as you said, to go through this healing process. Yours you found was with yoga. When it comes to us as women, we always felt like we had to be the strong Black woman. And now it's like another dynamic has surfaced as well. It's okay for us to be loved. It's okay for us to be pampered if we want to be. It's immediately this thing of another stigma attached to a white man race. Oh, so you went and found a rich guy, a rich white guy. And it's like, no, I am actually the one working, being at home, being a homeschool dad. So like,
Right.
no, it's not like that. But it's okay if I want to be pampered. Like it's okay that if I wanted to be an homeschool mom, I can do that. It's not only for Becky. Like
Right.
we can do that. Like, and you should want to pursue to give me that. Like it's okay. And it's not even giving that, but the space for it. I don't
No,
know.
that's true. And I think, I mean, I had this conversation with a friend, and I actually wanted to talk about like the toxicity associated with being a strong Black woman, right? Because what that has come to mean for so many of us is everything for us is for someone else. You know, we never really get to take care of ourselves. And I think that part of that dynamic is changing for ourselves, and we're changing it for ourselves because ultimately we start making more money, right? And we start being able to give ourselves that self-care. We start being like, you know what, I'm going to take a moment to put myself first and see what that is like. And I think the more often you do that, the more often you start pushing that out to other people, and you're like, I'm not going to accept those limitations on what's good for me. Because, I mean, I think even taking time for ourselves is often seen as a problem, you know? And I have a little coaching thing that I do, and I was talking to my coachee, I don't know what to call her, but I was talking to her, and she was like, you know, I told her to sit sometimes with her discomfort, you know, and she was like, I don't know how to do that. I'm not comfortable even by myself being vulnerable. And that has become, I think, one of the hard things for us, especially Black women in our community, is to allow people to see us in our vulnerable states and to even admit that we have vulnerable moments. And those things are so important for us in our relationships, in our, you know, ability as parents, as partners, as friends, as, you know, people, as humans.
Yes. Yeah.
So,
It's
I mean, finding a partner that you can be vulnerable with takes a lot of
whew,
effort, you know?
a, a lot. A lot. We've been at this for 16 years, and I still find these things that pocket up. Oh, you don't want to be vulnerable in that spot. Oh, you don't
Right.
want to admit that you were wrong with that thought process.
Right.
Like, I'm so, you had to be so protected in order to make sure that you didn't break down throughout the day. So, yeah, it's a hard wall to break down, but you're the only one that can do it.
Yeah,
So,
and I think that, you know, when we were talking earlier about us Black women, like we are the least protected. So it's harder for us to be vulnerable. You know,
yeah,
it's harder for us to find safe spaces because who's protecting us? You know, sometimes it's not even each other. So
yeah, Yeah.
You know, like it becomes such a lonely place to be.
Mhm.
And ultimately, we have to find the way to let ourselves be who we are. And I think that's what's important. And I think what's really sad in the respect to, you know, this idea of pro blackness and our partners and everything is like we are ourselves, like
Yeah.
fully, completely in these relationships
Yeah.
and without filter, you know, like completely. And people don't seem to want to accept or recognize, and they want to come at us way more harshly than they would come at any man, let alone a black man, about their personal choices. You know,
Yeah. Yeah.
it's you know,
That,
it's
yes.
another fight we have to have that we
That's
shouldn't have to.
yeah. Oh my goodness. Yeah. I don't even know why how this came to be, why it's a topic. Like I don't understand the gatekeeping of that. It doesn't make sense to me. I guess I have to think of it in a way that I can't put everyone under umbrella, because part of that healing is also dealing with, I'd have to say, come down to identity issues, self identity issues, because yeah, some dynamics, but not all. You do have people that don't like themselves and that look towards others to validate, but
Mm-hmm.
that's not the case for many of us in relationships outside of our race. It's not the case. We have to hold our own in those situations.
Right.
But I they have those one ups.
Right. No, it's true. What is your opinion in regards to when you start looking at this from the perspective, in the broad perspective for black women, and then becoming more open and changing how they see themselves in relationship to their blackness and, you know, dating or marrying and moving past expectations? Like, what do you think is the next step for black women as a whole? Because I still think that those of us who are dating, married, in relationships with other ethnicities are still a relatively specialized group, right? So, like, what do you think that which needs to change for black women to become more open and still feel like they're grounded in the community?
Yeah. Basically what we're doing now, we have to have these conversations. We have to be able to know that we have allies within this. Are being, I don't know, more vocal, more open, more transparent when it comes to situations like this, because you'll find that people are having these thoughts inwardly and thinking that they're crazy, or thinking that um, there's just something just kind of off with them. And once they see something that they can be related to, ability, they'd be like, oh, okay, I feel that way. I love that we do, like, social media is a love hate relationship for me, but
Yeah, I
having
understand.
this group, I found this group, and it's such a safe space. I think that we're very honest within it. And I found myself inviting people to the group that I know have struggled, have had these dynamics come up with mainly the in laws.
Mm-hmm.
And people right away, because some of our situations and dynamics are related to being interracial marriages or relationships, they automatically, well, you shouldn't have married them. And it's like, listen, we have issues with our in laws, even if we were the same culture. You're
Right,
going to have things come up. This just happens to be one of ours.
right.
So, being able to have open mindedness, accepting and understandability versus judgment would be a very good starting point.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think the judgment between us as women, you know, like needs to go away, it needs to be alleviated. And I think that um, the idea that we have, you know, especially the Black community, if you're dating someone who's white, right? Like there's a certain idea of things you might be missing out on that you're really not.
Yeah.
You're like it's not really a thing. Um, but I think that it's like that growth and understanding, and I think for Americans specifically to understand that Black and white culture in America is very intertwined. You know,
Mhm.
like the culture that is Blackness is what it is because of the oppression from whiteness, right? And to work through those dynamics and to understand that inside of a family and, you know, grow and raise and learn from one another is super, super important. And because your relationship with your husband is very different than your relationship with the extended family on both sides. So
Yeah.
there's lots of diversity, you know, and controversy, you know, because like white folks can be what they are, you know, in regards to like you and them, but you know, Black folks are what they are also in regards to him and your partners and all of those things. And so it's
Yeah.
it's very different, especially for Black women when we bring home a white dude or some dude from another ethnic group, what people think and what they want to already judge you for, you know. So
Yeah.
it's you know, it's multi-layered. We're doing God's work, girl. We are saving the world from
Okay.
themselves.
Yeah. I want to dive in. I want to dive in on these things that they think that we are missing out on.
Go ahead.
Like,
Go ahead. Talk about it, girl.
hmm. You know? So yeah, I just what yeah, what are the things that they sit and say or think or assume when it comes to it? So the first, I'm gonna tell you, it was crazy. When my auntie found out about us, we had a family get together and we're at my mom and dad's house. And this would be John's first experience with, I think it was his first experience at a Black barbecue, basically.
Mm-hmm.
So I left him out there to fend for himself with all the uncles, like
Right, right, right.
doing his thing. But then my auntie took me in my mom's room and she locked me in. And I'm like, what in the world is going on? And it's so Darlicia. So does he go down on you? I'm like, what? What are you doing? What? And she's like, well, is it really like that size? And I'm like, hold up. What is going on? So these
Really?
conversations that they wanted to have with me about being in our marriage. So, and she was very, very, very judgmental, like very judgmental. But I'm like, this is not, we're not doing this. We're not doing this. However, I will say that like I said, I black guy, and it happened to be him. And he was my first relationship that ever like actually satisfied me, put it that
Right,
way.
right.
So, and it wasn't to do with like I hate that that's the focus on our black men. Like that's aspire to is
Mm-hmm.
your penis. Like I want that. I want mind. I want your goals. I want your aspirations. I want to know that you want wealth and wellness. Our family. The
Amazing.
other items that I've come across is when it comes to the dynamic of having conversations and relatability.
Mm-hmm.
What we don't, the things that we don't have to, I guess, explain. It does. I'm not gonna lie. Living in a white world, because that's really what we live in, it gets tiresome to have to explain yourself sometimes.
Right.
But it's just part of the dynamic. It's not. I could be dealing with that, or I could be dealing with domestic violence, or I could be dealing with drugs, or I could be dealing with mental health. Like it's going to be something in there. I could be dealing with all of it, when it comes to
Right.
being in a relationship. But I do catch myself even sometimes. I'm like, and I hate that I do this, but when I'm upset, I do this sometimes, and I'm gonna admit it. Um, if I was married to a white or a black guy, I wouldn't have to explain this. I'm not saying that I don't love you. I'm not saying that I don't appreciate us being in this, but it is something that's very difficult. So I need you to listen to what I'm telling you so I don't have to explain this again. So,
Right, right.
thing.
But I think what's important in that is having a partner that listens to you, who will stop, because that could be about a lot of topics. Being a woman with a man, there is going to be things that I experience in this world that you have no idea what it's like. So be the person to listen, be the person who's open, be that person. And I think, there is that comfort in sometimes being come home and be like, y'all, Whitey did this. You know what I mean? And you can easily relate, but there's so many other aspects of life than race relations. And I think that, if the only thing you have to relate to someone on is being black in the white world,
Mm-hmm.
that's pretty limiting.
Yeah.
That there's so much more. There's so much more that we have about ourselves that matter.
A third that I've ran into. I'll explain from my position too. But the third item that I found that they'll say that we're missing out on is a level of discipline, like how we approach child rearing,
Mm.
and that the dynamics are different there. Honestly, though, for me, I found it to be because of being raised in the South and then coming up here. It's like those are the two different, because you could be in any relationship, but your cultural background, your dynamics that you were raised in is really produce how you are going to raise your children and your
Sure.
perspective that you take away from it. So, but I've gotten that kickback where, oh, well, if he was black, and I'm like, no, that doesn't have anything to do with it. So please
Yeah.
don't do that. But yeah,
No,
I've gotten that.
I can agree with that as well. And I think that, again, I mean, it definitely is what you said. It really depends on your own personal child's experience. And I think in our community, there's another, child rearing is another place where generational curses need to be broken.
Yes.
And a lot of the things that our parents did, our grandparents did, our great grandparents did, are not okay. And
Yeah.
I think that we are, like, in this generation, are still navigating those waters,
Oh,
and
yeah.
trying to figure out how to be the parents that our children need, and not necessarily just follow the rule of what people do, So I think that's really an important aspect, and probably, like, that's just like even a whole nother
Yeah.
conversation to have one day. So I think
Yeah.
that that's definitely true. I agree with all three of those things, that they they always come up, and it always is rooted in this idea of what would be okay in blackness. I'm gonna let you go because it's getting crazier and crazier here. I think we have some good things, to share with people, and I think that it's going to matter for a lot of us, especially women. Which is what I really want to. I want to have a voice for these women and these topics. So I appreciate your time.
Oh, no problem. Thank you for having me.
I'm sorry about all the craziness in
I
the
apologize.
background, but I guess it's also part of what my life is like. All right, that's it, guys. So I know that was a lot. That was a lot to talk about. It was heavy. I know, and I think that I don't know what you guys think. Subscribe to the channel. Tell me your thoughts in the comments, and I can't wait to have this discussion with some of you and ask me questions if you have them. But yeah, so that's it for now. Ciao, ciao.